Hi, I'm Pete Holloway. I'm a retired financial advisor and a retired certified financial planner. And as always, it's my great pleasure to welcome you to On Money. We have a very special guest today, Danny Magruder, the mayor of Wheeling. Danny is a Wheeling native. He graduated from Wheeling Central and West Liberty with a BA in accounting and spent quite a while in various accounting jobs. And in 1986, he took over the management of West Banco Arena and the Capitol Theater, and has, in the past, 6 months, he was elected mayor of Wheeling. We're glad to have you with us. Why did you decide to run for mayor?
Well, Pete, there was no single reason. I had retired in late 2022, and 4 or 5 months after that, you just start looking for some things to do and wonder what I might do. And one day I was over at the Wellness Center, and a friend of mine looked at me and said, "Hey, would you consider running for mayor?" And I thought, "Are you crazy?" But that triggered a thought, Pete, and as I pondered that, I had always worked on the fringes of government, so I had a familiarity with government. Early on, I worked for the city of Wheeling after I earned my accounting degree, worked in utility rate accounting. I then worked for a CPA firm where my specialty was municipal audits, got to do a lot of that. I served as business manager comptroller for Marshall County School and worked with the state on a lot of finance issues, and obviously they were intertwined. And then, of course, at the arena and the theater, we worked with the city and sometimes even with the state. So I had an interest in that. I had a love for Wheeling. I was born and spent almost all of my life here in Wheeling. And so as I pondered that and thought about it, I shared it with my wife, I shared it with my kids, and here I am. Just decided to run, and the citizens were kind enough to elect me.
Oh, there you go. Okay, you come into office. What was your biggest surprise? Because I'm sure you had certain ideas of what was going to be coming, and something had to come out of the blue for you.
Well, I have to be honest with you. There was no single big surprise. I guess the benefit of having worked all these years on the fringe of government, I was connected and stayed in touch. I had worked with Bob Herron for 22 years, so I knew Bob pretty well. Obviously, no surprise there. I knew most of the council folks. I do read the newspaper every day and listen to the news, so no surprise. But when I came in, there were some things I found. One was I was really, I guess, feeling good about the quality of work at the city building. There's some phenomenal employees there. The city clerk, Bob Herron himself. I worked for Bob, I said, for 22 years. I knew Bob was good. I didn't know how good. The gentleman has his fingers on everything. He understands the intricacies of all the nuances in finance in terms of tax credits, TIF districts. Bob's really good, and he's been the engineer of a lot of the successes that we're having right now. So I don't know if there's ever any what I would call big surprises, Pete, just meeting new and different people and becoming updated on the projects that were in place.
I'm sure you've had plenty of plans for taking over this job. Tell us about the military banner program.
Yeah,
You've got to be proud of that.
Well, I really am proud of that, and I'll be honest with you, it's something that over the years, Pete, as you drive up and down the river in some of our smaller communities, you see these wonderful banners paying tribute to our veterans. And there were a couple people in Wheeling that during my campaign had mentioned that to me. Why don't we have that? And so I asked one of those very people that asked that question, "Hey, tell me more about it." And he's a young man from Weirton. And we got to talking, and we've had several meetings. We got together with folks, and so recently, a few weeks ago, Wheeling, the city of Wheeling, launched its Wheeling Military Banner Program. It's a two-sided banner, 24 by 36 inches. Family can purchase those for $125. There's 3 places you can go to pick up applications to drop them off. That happens to be the Howard Long Wellness Center, the Ohio County Public Library, and in Warwood, the Fitzsimmons Law Office. So there's a lot of partners. The American Legion's now become involved, the VFW, a lot of partners. But those banners will fly, Pete, between Memorial Day and Veterans Day every year. And we'll put them up and take them down. The city, Bob Herron, the operations department, jumped on this opportunity. We couldn't do it without them. And it's just going to be a great tribute to veterans. And I think that's something we need to do.
We've got to.
You and I couldn't be here this morning without our veterans.
To say the least. Is there a cutoff date? Or
There is no cutoff date, Pete. They can pick up these applications. In fact, they can go online. It's www.wheelingtroopbanners.com. They can find the information there. They can stop at one of these locations. Right now, you can send your applications in. The things will be processed. It's a $125 fee. All the information's there. They will not start to fly until next Memorial Day. But I think it'll be wonderful as we see along National Road, Route 2 up and down, and maybe Zane Street on Wheeling Island to begin. I don't think it's going to take long to see 100, 200, 300 banners flying. And the one thing I've said to people, just remember, our veterans, they've done such a great job for us, but they're very humble people. They don't talk about that. So the veterans aren't going to put their own pictures up on our utility poles. We, the family and friends, need to do that for them. So,
well, they should be honored, certainly.
And that's something we feel strong about.
Well, that's terrific. Okay, you were just inaugurated 6 months ago. Let's go out 3.5 years to the end of your first term.
Okay.
Looking back, what would you like to, if you were sitting there 3.5 years from now, and you're looking back, what would you like to have seen as some of your accomplishments?
Well, my vision today, Pete, for the 4 years from now and looking back, one is I'd like to see some bricks and mortar projects that are going to be significant to our city be completed. And with that, one of those completed or at least major underway, the W-View Cancer Center in Center Wheeling. Mm-hmm. I think that's going to be one of the most significant projects that our community's ever embarked upon. Mm-hmm. And that project is moving along. Construction hasn't started. Demolition's not finished yet down there. But that's going to be an exciting project. I want to see that done come to fruition. Mm-hmm. Uptown, I think we've got the Gateway Center. The Wheeling Inn now is down. People are loving the new view, the suspension bridge. But if we can get that Gateway Center in there, which is not only welcomes people to Wheeling, but provides some of the historical aspects, it gives us some unique views of the suspension bridge, that'll be phenomenal. I want to see that project completed. As we move down the street, a very exciting project. Barry and Lisa Allen have talked about their dream of building a new, really cutting-edge hotel right across from the West Banco Arena, which is so near and dear to me. I want to see that project, kind of get on the way, be close to fruition by that time. It takes time, but to see that done, and then Clay School. The Clay School thing that's been bandied around in our community now for several years, I happen to believe that we need to demolish Clay School, and we need to put some other structures there that fit in with the neighborhood and fit in with the complex across the street with the athletic complex. And then maybe Washington Avenue Bridge. I just need to say to people, we've had some painful road construction. A few years ago, we had the major interstate construction where Interstate 70 East and West both was closed for a while. Right. We had to run the detours. Then we've encountered the Streetscape project, which hopefully 1 year from now, that thing will be totally done. Mm-hmm. But the infrastructure is going to be magnificent in town when that happens. Now we've had the bridge in Elm Grove has been completed. The Washington Avenue Bridge is going to be done, but that's a major throughway, obviously, to Wheeling Hospital area. Mm-hmm. Want to see some of those things done. There's some other projects. As I leave office, I want to make sure and feel that we continue to grow the idea of partnership. That's something special here. And that's something that I thought I could bring to the table. In my world as a youth athlete and all, I was never the star, Pete. I was the kind of guy that had to play roles. And so for all of my career, I think I've been a role player, kind of a quarterback where you hand it off and other people get things done. I think that's one of the things that the city's done pretty well. And I want to see us do that. I mean, we work well, hopefully, with the state government, with local government, the High County Commission, with the Chamber of Commerce, with RED. The reason for many of our successes is that cooperative spirit that you just don't find by and large across our country, but it exists in our community. And I want to see that become even stronger.
Yeah, and many other places, one of those groups wants to be the most powerful and block everyone out. And you can't work that way. You got to mesh.
Pete, you can't work that way. And for me, there's been a couple personal experiences. One is the saga of the Wheeling Nailers. 33 years. We're in our 33rd season here in Wheeling. People never would have dreamt that. But that's because this community supports the Nailers, both from a political, business, media. They all support this team. So that's a perfect example of how when the community works together with all of its aspects, we continue to have an asset. I think the rebirth of the Capitol Theater, the largest entertainment company in America, threw the theater on the scrap house, said it couldn't get it done. Live Nation said, we're going to close it. It's not effective. It's not efficient. Look, it's become a bright spot on Main Street again. Mm-hmm. I believe, Pete, it's been the impetus for some of that development on Main Street because, the health plan would have not built their new building had there been some expression of confidence by the community with the lights back on at the theater. Their former director, Jim Pennington, told me that himself. He said if the city had not reopened that theater and turned those lights on and provided some hope on Main, we wouldn't have built a new building down the street. That compounds, since then, Tony DiCarlo, she's made great pizza for 40 years, but now she's building a new pizza shop with high-end condos on top overlooking the Ohio River. That's because great things are happening. The Carl brothers and what they've done with the Bridge Bar, it's amazing. The New Bridge Church, formerly the Vineyard Church, has rehabbed that other property there in the corner of 10th Street. That's going to be a magnificent corner in a few months when all of the rubble's gone from the Wheeling Inn. I mean, there's confidence, there's hope, there's positivity occurring in Wheeling. And momentum's a great thing, Pete. And it's in full progress right now.
That is really, really super. What has you, this has all been, I think people appreciate you because of your positivity. So I'm going to ask the negative question.
Yes, sir.
What has you the most worried about the city? And, well, just go ahead from there.
Well, let's be honest. And I like to be a very positive person. I think that produces results. But when you sit back and worry, you always worry about the future. And one of the things that I think we just always are concerned about is economic development. There's not a city across this country that doesn't talk about economic development. It's the key to growth. It's the key to the future. When I talk about growth, I want to make sure we take care of the 27,000 people that live here right now first and provide them with the high quality of life that I think we've established in Wheeling. This community has been very blessed with things like Ogilvy Park, the fact that we have the river here and we have the casino here. There's just so many things going on here. The social service agencies that we share. The Ogilvy Institute, the Wheeling Symphony, the Wheeling Nailers, the Ohio County Public Library is just tremendous. We could go on and on. But one of the great things about Wheeling is its quality of life and its assets. We want to continue that. But economic growth is really important to maintain some of those things. And as I said, in that, you've got the tandem. You've got population. That's a direct result of economic activity. If there are no jobs, population wanes greatly. When there are jobs, population grows. And so that's a concern of mine. Economic development, do we have all the answers? No, I don't think we do. But I think our job is to set the stage, to make sure that public safety, and we're blessed with that again, police and fire, we have probably the best departments in the state of West Virginia and certainly some of the top departments in America in our public safety. Potable water and sewer. Again, Wheeling has invested a lot of money in those two utilities. They're going to continue to do that. We have to do that. All those quality of life things I talked about, all the new infrastructure, the new public roads that we have, highways, just a whole positive environment. So I think, Pete, we set the stage. And when you set the stage, there's a good chance that economic development is going to happen.
If you build it, they will come.
If you build it, they will come. I really believe in that.
That's great. And I assume that you work with whether it's the Ohio County Development Authority, the State of West Virginia Economic Development Authority. There must be a larger one that takes into account Pennsylvania, West Virginia, Ohio. You're working with all these organizations.
Pete, we're working with all those. And this is a key time. And this is one of the things I talked about earlier. I think is team building and partnerships. Right now we've had a change in state government. Governor Justice is now moving on to the Senate. But Governor Justice has been very good to Wheeling. There was a great relationship, I think, over time established. And we've got some organizations here. The Chamber of Commerce does a great job. And they're out there all the time promoting in partnership, not trying to be the big dog, to be the partner. RED, the Regional Economic Development Authority, Josh Jefferson. I mean, Josh is just a super guy. They are so good at developing relationships at the state level. And listen, we can sit here and talk about economic development all day, but if we're not partners with the state and the region, even across the river with the Ohio agencies, that is the key to future development, is to continue to build and to make those partnerships better. We now have a lot of changes in Washington. Senator Manchin's gone. We now have Senator Justice coming in. We just have to do a lot of work in making sure that those relationships are strong and that they're two-way. They can't be one way. We can't keep asking for something we have to be willing to give. So compromise is also important.
Yeah, it seems to me that, and it sounds from what you've been saying, if St. Clairsville gets a great big factory, we might say, darn, I wish it was here, but it's in St. Clairsville, and it's going to hire our people, and then there'll be spinoffs from that. So,
Pete, I've always said we could not let that river be a barrier. This is a community. This is a greater community. And I talked about the Nailers. The success of the Nailers in West Banco Arena, in my days there, we had the people right here from West Liberty do number of surveys for us over the years. And you'd be surprised at how many of our patrons came from the state of Ohio. So certainly they're great partners. You know, for 200 years, Wheeling's been the hub of the Ohio Valley. And we're still a hub. We want to retain that. That's something we're proud of. But we want to look at the community and the community at large. So you hit it right on the head. If something great happens in St. Clairsville, or if the new center happens down in Dilly's Bottom, you know, the cracker plant, we're going to be great for that because a lot of those people are going to live and shop and be in Wheeling and go back and forth. So it's all about our partners in the region.
okay. Let's follow up on that a little bit. I was kind of saddened to see the statistic the other day that Wheeling, which has always been the third largest city in West Virginia, Charleston, Huntington, Wheeling, is now the fifth largest. And it just, like I said, I was a bit surprised by that. How do we retain the young people or get people to move into the area?
Well, Pete, as I said before, I think, again, there's where we have to set the table. We have to make sure that the quality of life is excessively good here, that people want to live here. Our young people want to stay. And I think that that's happening. But we still have to have that economic development detail. We've got to be able to provide those job opportunities. And I think we're seeing some of that right now. I think if you look around town, Oric several years ago moved to Wheeling. They brought several people with them, but they've given several local people the opportunity to work there and become involved in management levels. We now have Williams Lee that occupies the old Stone and Thomas building. And just an interesting statistic, in its heyday, Stone and Thomas probably employed 170 people to cover all their shifts and all their departments. Today, Williams and Lee has 600 people working out of that location. Now, they're not there every day. They're not all there every day. But that's why the city's built some new parking garages in that vicinity. That's amazing. But those are the kind of things, Pete, I think still have to happen. And as you get involved with the management of those particular companies, you find out that those people are here mainly because there was a high quality of life. They chose to come here because they knew they could attract and retain quality employees if there was a good quality of life. And so we have to keep focused on that. We have to remind our young people of that. I think we need to be out and about in our high schools. And I think the Chamber of Commerce is now launching some new programs which engages students even at the middle school level to show them the opportunities here in the Upper Ohio Valley. And we just have to keep focused. That's got to be our focus. We can't give up. We have a sense of pride here. I think we feel that. And the other thing we have to say to some of our students, some of our graduates, they leave because they have opportunities. I have a grandson I mentioned to you before the show. A great opportunity, and he's left town. He's living in Winchester, works for the federal government, doing a great job right now. But I still loathe for the day that he may be able to return here and open his own engineering firm or do whatever he wants to do. But when our young people leave, that's not always bad because they learn some valuable lessons. And a lot of times when they return home, they choose to return home, they bring what they've learned with them to make our community even a better place. So yeah, it's key to retain our youth. I think we have to be positive about it. We, the grandparents, the parents, the friends, the citizens in Wheeling, have to speak well of our community, have to be proud of our community. I think there was a time when I heard a lot of people encouraging their kids to leave. That's not the right attitude. We need to encourage them to stay, but they have to have the opportunities that make them want to stay.
Years ago, I did a show. I've always been pleased with this. And I had several couples on. And the parameters were that one member of the couple had to have grown up in Wheeling and have been away for 10 years. And as soon as someone says, I'm coming back to Wheeling, unfortunately, coming right out of our mouth before we can stop it is, why? And I asked that question, and it was what you'd expect, good low taxes, beautiful, inexpensive properties. et cetera, et cetera. And then they said something that I did not see coming, and each member of the couple said it. We grew up in Warwood or Dimmydale or South Wheeling, and we want to bring our kids back to that environment because we live in San Diego, some big city, and we don't know our neighbors, and we're just really uncomfortable there. And Wheeling offers a lot as a small town.
Back to that quality of life, I think. But the other thing, Pete, that I found in the last 4 months, and this is an adjunct to what you just said, I have found as I've been involved in different organizations and speaking, and people come up to me, it's amazing over the last year and a half, from what I've heard, how many folks have moved to Wheeling that had no previous familial connection. I ran into a couple from Atlanta, Georgia. Quite frankly, they're in their later 50s, 2 or 3 kids. They're empty nesters. And as they sat down in Atlanta just 2 years ago, they were pondering the traffic. Said the traffic's getting worse. If they need a loaf of bread, they have to leave the house, get in a car, drive 15 minutes, fight the traffic, and then come back home. And so they said, well, the stress, the crime, the traffic, they started to look and they started to do different internet searches about quality of life, places to go. And they said when they did those searches, they found 2 or 3 places online that just appealed to them, one of which was Wheeling. They visited Wheeling. They now live here on 14th Street. They bought one of the older homes. They've rehabbed that just a couple blocks from east of Wheeling Central. But the husband said, listen, I love the idea that I can walk to the waterfront in the summer. I can go to free concerts on the waterfront. I can walk to the Center Market House and get one of your famous Coleman fish sandwiches. And he said, when I need a gallon of milk or a loaf of bread, I don't have to get in my car and drive 20 minutes. He said, the only difference here is when I'm third in line at the stop sign, I'm in a traffic jam. Right. And I love to hear those things. But there was another couple with 3 kids, actually from New York City. And they said that they expressed the idea that back during COVID, they were kind of locked in the house, and they had 3 kids very young, preschoolers. And things got a little contentious between mom and dad. They spent too much time together. And as that, it made them ponder their life and where they were going and what their future might have in store. And they said, wait a minute, is this where we want to raise our kids? In this metropolis, this jungle? And they also began to look. And they found their way to Wheeling. And one of the meetings I was at here just a couple months ago, they come up and introduced themselves, and they told me the story. They said, you don't know what you have. They now came here, you have one of the greatest school systems we've ever participated in. The opportunities at your library for our kids, the fact that the streets are so clean and so safe. And Pete, that's not something we always think about ourselves. Somebody from outside the area has to tell us that. There's another one I just want to mention. There was a couple, they're childless, just a husband and wife. A number of years ago, 3 years or so ago, they were driving through here to visit relatives from Mississippi. They were driving through to visit relatives in the eastern part of Pennsylvania. And as they drove through, it happened to be Christmas time. And it was the month of December. And they crossed the Fort Henry Bridge and glanced off to the right, and it was snowing that evening, and said, oh my goodness, the lights looking downtown. They got off and drove through the lights and said, wow, what an experience. They went on about their trip. It happened to be 2 years later. They were looking for some places else to live, and they had looked at a place in Clarion, Pennsylvania, that they were going to visit. It was in the summertime. And they drove across that bridge again with the windows down. And the wife told me this time, she said, I looked to the left because last time I had looked downtown, and behind her she saw these marvelous houses on the edge of Wheeling Island. And said to her husband, oh, we got to get off again. We got to drive around here. I want to see this. And they were blown away by the architecture. Now, some they saw were in disrepair, but they said, wow. They drove on. They went on their trip to Clarion, but they came back through Wheeling and decided to stop and talk to a realtor. They now live here on Wheeling Island. They are rehabbing one of those island mansions that she saw out the window. They are good churchgoers. They are members of the church community. The husband now volunteers with Jay Fry on the Ohio County Cemeteries Foundation. Mm-hmm. They have become a very integral part of this community in less than a year. And they also preach that story for us, you don't know what you have. And so I've heard those stories, and it makes me stop and think, Pete, maybe we're not doing a good enough job in telling people what we have and showing people what we have.
I love to tell people, what we don't have? Hurricanes.
Let's hope we never get one. But
Right.
you're
But,
right.
and then the people in Florida or the people out west with the forest fires, they got to be looking. In fact, it's got me a little concerned that they're going to all start to move here. Well, there'll be too many.
Well, Pete, one of the blessings, we get to experience 4 seasons. There are 4 seasons. And I had friends once out in Arizona, and I said to them, wow, that'd be nice to live out there. Listen, we pray for clouds, is what the man told me. He said, we pray for clouds. And you stop and think about those things, and you think about what we do here, the diversity in life. We do see all 4 seasons. This is just a great place, Pete, to work and live and worship and raise a family. I can think of none better. And I've been blessed over my lifetime, particularly in some of my roles with the arena, that we would travel to meetings or be places to meet a lot of different people and be at those places. I was always happy to come home. And I had a couple job opportunities out of the area that quite honestly paid much more money. And as you ponder those with your family, you go, wow, wait a minute, that's not what it's all about. We decided to stay here, and I'm so grateful we did. This is where I'm going to die, Pete. I mean, you and I have experienced the quality of life here.
Well, I want to thank you very much, and especially I mentioned about your optimism, and keep spreading it, and best of luck. And by the way, in about a year, I'm going to have you back, and we'll see how things are going.
Thank you very much, and thank you to the great job you do for this community.
Well, I appreciate that. I'd like to thank you all. We'll be seeing you next week. I'm Pete Holloway.